Hey everyone, I'm Chris with Nelson Woodworks. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this dresser using the plans from Fix This Build That, but instead of using construction grade lumber like it states in the plans, I'm going to go ahead and mill it my own. Let's get started. Now the plans say to use dimensional lumber, the lumber that you can get at the big box store, but with lumber prices being outrageous as they are, I went to my local hardwood dealer and picked up some poplar that I can mill down into the dimensions that I need myself. So let's go ahead and start milling it up. I don't own a jointer, so I'm using a planing sled to get one side completely flat. And once that is flat, I can flip it over and run it through the planer again to get the other side flat for my legs. Since I don't own a jointer, I clamped a straight edge to my workpiece and using my circular saw squared up one edge. After I had one edge squared up, I could put that against my table saw fence and run it through to square up both sides of my workpiece. We can take this piece and run it through the table saw to go ahead and cut out our 4 legs for the dresser. So now that all the legs are cut down, we will go ahead and cut them down to final size on the chop saw. After that, we're going to put a rabbet in 2 of these. I've never done a rabbet before. Normally you would want to cut an extra leg when you do things that you've never done before, rabbet, taper, etc. But I didn't have enough material, so I'm going to run a rabbet through some scrap and hopefully I don't mess up the legs. So for the rabbet, we need to cut a rabbet that is 1/2 inch deep by 1/4 inch wide. So for the first cut, we're going to set our blade 1/2 inch from the fence and make sure that the blade is 1/4 inch tall, and then we'll run each leg through one at a time, and then we'll raise the blade to 1/2 inch and release the offcut of the rabbet itself. This by far was the most complicated for me to understand in this build. Can run 2 of our legs through the table saw, cutting the initial part of our rabbet and then running them both through again, releasing the offcut. Now we can start cutting down the plywood in more manageable pieces so we can cut them down to final dimensions on the table saw. The plans do say to do this first, but I knew it was going to take me a while to mill up that 8/4 stock into the legs, so I wanted to get that going first before I cut down the plywood, so let's go ahead and rip it down. Now we can start breaking down the plywood into more manageable pieces that we can run through the table saw for final dimensions for the side panels and the bottom part of the dresser. At the same time, I went ahead and cut all my pieces for my drawer boxes since there was so many of them and I was already at the table saw cutting down 3/4 inch ply. Now it's time for everyone's favorite, pocket holes. I drill pocket holes in both side panels before attaching them to the legs with glue and screws. So now that a majority of the plywood pieces for the frame are cut out, I'm going to go ahead and get all the pieces that the plans say to use pine for out of 4/4, so 1 inch thick poplar. I normally buy my lumber surface 2 sides with 1 straight edge. So these just need to be a couple passes through the planer to get it down to that final 3/4 inch thick. So let's go ahead and get these cut down to final size and get to installing. I start by cutting the 3/4 inch poplar pieces down to the desired length on the miter saw before then taking them over to the table saw for a final width. These pieces will all be for the trim and stretcher pieces for the dresser. So now it's time to attach the top and bottom trim on both side panels. The plans say to use glue and brad nails. The brad nails are just so that way you don't have to wait for the glue to dry, you don't have to clamp it. I don't want to use brad nails on here. I don't want to have to go back and fill in the holes. So I'm going to just use some CA glue and some activator, and it should give it an instant bond. So that way I don't have to worry about refilling any of the holes later on. And then that's not going to go anywhere. So now we just repeat the process on the top on the other side and the bottom on both panels, and then we can start getting the panels looking like a dresser. So now we can drill pocket holes on the bottom panel of the dresser and install the front and back bottom trim pieces to that panel. We then can take the bottom panel and pocket hole screw it into one of the side panels of the dresser. If you pay close attention, you notice that I have the bottom panel installed upside down. I didn't notice this issue until I got ready to install the drawers, but I did fix it off camera later on. Now we drill more pocket holes on the front and back stretcher pieces, getting them installed for the 2 small drawers and to attach to the other side panel. I attempt not to throw out my back as I lift the side panel to get it installed on the other side panel, screwing it in with pocket screws. Next, we can install the center dividers for the 2 top small drawers using, you guessed it, pocket screws. Now we can get the back panel cut out of 1/4 inch plywood and brad nail it to the back of the dresser. Now it's time for the drawers. We use pocket holes again for the drawer construction, getting all 6 drawers assembled. We can then cut down 1/4 inch plywood for the drawer bottoms, brad nailing them to the bottom of the drawers, which should be strong enough just for clothes. To install the drawer slides for the 4 big drawers, I use a spacer cut from 3/4 inch plywood, installing the slides all the way up on one side of the dresser and then repeating the same on the other side. To attach the drawer slide to the drawers, I put a few scrap pieces of plywood down under the drawers as a spacer. I put the other part of the slide back into the rails, slowly pulling the drawer forward and installing screws until the slide is attached to the drawer, working my way up all 4 of the big drawers. For the 2 small drawers, I repeat the same process, using a spacer to install the drawer slide and then installing the slide to the drawer itself until all drawers are finally installed. Next, we can get the false drawer fronts cut out and installed. To install these, I cut down a strip of plywood to use as a spacer for height. I then used playing cards to get an even reveal on the left and right sides, attaching the drawer fronts with screws. I repeat this process for all 4 of the large drawers. For the 2 small drawers, it's much of the same process, except I use playing cards all the way around the drawer fronts to get an even reveal. One trick I found to get this to work every time is make sure you always have a royal flush in your hand. Now it's time for the top of the dresser. We cut the trim pieces out of 3/4 inch poplar down to the needed size. We then can put a miter cut on all 4 trim pieces before attaching it to the dresser top using glues and pocket holes. The top of the dresser is made from 3/4 inch plywood. After the glue dries, we can put a chamfer around the top of the dresser. You can do a round over if you want, but I like the way the chamfer looks. Put in the description box below, are you team round over or team chamfer? Before we can attach the top, we need to create some cleats for the top to attach to. We'll use 3/4 inch plywood for the cleats, mounting them to the dresser using, you guessed it, pocket holes. Don't worry, this is the last of the pocket holes on this project. After painting, we can now attach the top. I line the top up even across all sides before screwing in from underside on the cleats. I'm using the Craig cabinet hardware jig to get all the knob holes installed on all the drawers. After all the knob holes are drilled on all the drawers, we can call this project finished. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll go ahead and leave a link to the plans from Fix This Build That in the description box below. If you like projects like this, I've got more coming out in the future, shop projects along with furniture projects. So make sure you're subscribed, like, and comment, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.